the highlight for me, honestly, was Ensenada. Ensenada was really, really, really pretty. It's very, very polished. I was kind of honestly, just because I've heard a lot about Ensenada, I was kind of expecting it to be a little bit run amok, a little bit run down, a little bit kind of like the seaside ghetto of Mexico almost. I wasn't really, I didn't have very high hopes for Ensenada. I really liked Ensenada. I think it's way nicer than Cozumel, like by a several dozen yards. Cozumel, honestly, Cozumel is what I expected Ensenada to look like. Cozumel it looked really, really run down. Half the streets weren't even finished. Yeah, they had a Hard Rock and they had this outlet mall type thing, but more than half the stores in the outlet mall type thing weren't open. They didn't even have anything established there, and they had very bizarre hours, and so nothing was open. And they had they have this they at the port they have a little mall thing, but anything outside the port, that's it. Like that's all they have is the little port mall, and the Hard Rock. And the Hard Rock has very bizarre hours. Like we had to wait around 30 minutes for them to even open up, and it was like noon when they're like, no, you need to wait. We're just like, are you kidding? It's noon. It's a restaurant. Why aren't you open? But Ensenada, it was really charming, and all the streets were clean, and there's this really lovely boardwalk that extended quite far out. And it turned out they had this really, really nice water show that started at 2, and we left. We hung out for about 15-20 minutes, and slowly made our way back to the port, and it was still going at about 2:30 almost. So, and that was really, it was super nice. Free Wi-Fi along the entire boardwalk, and really good strong signal too. So I was able to catch up. Ray took me to his go-to restaurant, Tacos del Sol, at Ensenada, and it was fantastic food. And it was a really, really nice moment too, because again the server doesn't speak any English. And I took some Spanish. My mom, she's fluent in Spanish. She lived in Asuncion for a while. It's where she met my biological father. So she's got and I had like a Nicaraguan babysitter for a long time. So I was kind of through all these different things been able to pick up on a little bit of Spanish. And so we were kind of able to just between like her very, very, very basic English, which we're talking like she can say yes. It's pretty much like that's what she could say, and me being able to have a few little, I'd be like, "Como se dice?" Bill, and she's like, okay, I think la cuanta, and so I was like, okay, so that's what we want, and but it was a really, really nice moment of these two people from two different cultures, from two different languages, who needed to kind of find some way to communicate with each other so that both can come out of that experience feeling good about themselves. And it worked, and it was really, really nice, and you can tell that she really liked the experience. We came out really liking the experience. The food was fantastic. The service was really, really good, especially again given we were just basically signing our way and pigeon Spanishing our way through the whole thing. So it was the margaritas were really good. We had queso tacos, so like cheese tacos with a little bit of beef in it. It was so good, and this weird super salty salsa type thing. I don't even know what it is. If someone knows what it is, it's like roasted onions and roasted tomatoes, like yellow tomatoes too, and spices and like 13 cups of salt, and but it was strangely compelling because I didn't actually like it, but yet I kept on going back for more. I'm like, it's not good, but it's not bad, so I'm gonna have more. And you scoop it up with these super salty chips. Yeah, it was a really nice experience. We went to a churro stand, in Ensenada, and we had this really nice conversation with these two guys about cruising and stuff like that. They didn't try to. They kind of there was one vendor that kind of came, but because when you go to tourist towns, they have like hustlers come by and like, oh, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy that. And yeah, we call it the gauntlet. You go down the street and you get just harassed. Well, not harassed, but you're just saying no to everything. Because you just say no to everything. Several times we were offered free samples of from things from La Farmacia, and no, just say no to everything. But yeah, there was at one point we were talking to these two guys at the churro stand, and a vendor tried coming up and selling them things, and they shooed the guy away just as we were shooing them away because he's we're having a conversation, go away. So it was a really, really nice experience, and so it was I very much recommend doing this sailing if for no other reason than checking out Ensenada. Catalina, it's fine, it's nice. If you stay on the ship, you're not missing anything. But definitely come check out Ensenada. But yeah, it was super pretty. I really, really liked it.
And the boardwalk is new. The boardwalk had been under construction, I guess, for a while. Um, this is my fourth time to Ensenada, and I've never seen that boardwalk before. And so it is a great attraction on its own.
Mm-hmm.
A Bellagio like fountain show, except it's the kind you can run into. I've always wished that I could take a little rowboat out into that pond in front
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
Bellagio. That was very nice. And so Ensenada has definitely upped its game, and there's still ongoing construction on that boardwalk of vendors and shops, probably restaurants and
Yeah.
things. So I think Ensenada is really up and coming as a
Absolutely.
destination. It's the last place I was expecting to see new development and this kind of stuff. Sam and I joke about that Ensenada's a bit of a hole, and it's kind of the cheap place you go to, and you go off the ship for an hour and you're back on board and don't even bother and all that kind of stuff. But no, they're really upping their game. Ensenada is surprisingly, they're coming to play now. So
Yeah, we spent
that's
what, a
good.
good 3.5 hours there.
Yeah,
I
well,
know.
I mean, 1 hour just on the Wi-Fi alone.
Yeah,
But,
that's probably yeah.
and then another, half hour watching the fountain shows. But yeah, absolutely.
There's this gigantic, oh my goodness, there's this massive flag, a Mexican flag obviously. I swear to God, it's the size of a football field. And I had Ray stand at the base of the flagpole. And then I basically had to stand a good 100 feet away from him just so I can get the entire flagpole and Ray in the photo. And so you look at the photo and you just do this tiny little black dot of Ray's shirt, and then the rest of the flag. It stood a good 200 feet. I mean, I don't know from feet, but I think it did. So and it was just like, and it's funny, like when I see these kind of flags, no offense, but when I see these kind of flags in the States, I'm kind of like, oh, that's obscene, like whatever. And when I see them in Canada, I'm like, all right, come on, who are we trying to pretend? Who are we trying to fool? But for whatever reason, the Mexico, like, that's cool. I like that flag. That flag is awesome. So I'm not really sure why the Mexican flag being like absurdly and comically huge is compelling to me. Whereas everything else, I'm just like, what? But I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was a neat little attraction, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. The giant flag of Ensenada is cool. It wasn't here the last time I was here on the $24 cruise because I think they were repairing it or something. So it was nice to see it back because I mean it was even there when Burton and I first came. So it's a nice little piece of the personality I think
Mm-hmm.
of Ensenada, which
It does have a really nice personality. The town itself. It's the people, like all, even the street vendors, like you say no, they tend to leave you alone. They don't kind of come back at you, and then the ones who don't, I mean, they kind of have a bit of a sense of humor about it. Like this one guy, he wanted us to do this horse and carriage ride. We're like, no, we're good. He said, come on, it'll be free. And we're like, no, we're good. He's like, all right, I'll pay you. And so and he was just having a sense of humor about it. So it wasn't like no one. I found like when we were in Paris and we dealt with street vendors, they tended to be. I mean, it's Paris, so probably because of that, they tended to be a little bit more rude. They tended to be a little bit more offended by you saying no. But here, they're just like, all right, whatever. Just move on to the next person.
Well, I think also in Paris, the street vendors are not as tolerated by the local police. When we were in Paris, we would see them. It was sort of a professional operation. You had to be impressed with the efficiency
Yeah.
because they would have all their trinkets on a blanket, and the four corners would have little eyelets, and so they would just pull up one string that went through the four corners, and it would suddenly turn into a hobo sack basically, and it'd scatter. Whereas in Ensenada, I think that this is just generally accepted sort of behavior, whether it's according to the law legal versus enforcement. It doesn't seem like anything is being enforced to stop the people. I saw some police with a bike across the street, and that kind of hard sell was occurring, but it feels a lot more aggressive in Paris, and I think that's because they're breaking the law. They're getting ready to run from the police at any time. They need to close the sale quickly. So it is very different in that respect.
Yeah, I felt like the police presence here was like, except for and even for Cozumel, police presence in Mexico, at least in the coastal towns, is almost non-existent. And it's not that they're not there. Obviously, like again, we saw the police officers, in Ensenada, but it wasn't like armed military. It wasn't like they were like rushing in on this guy. Like you hear all these stories about corruption within the police force in Mexico, and that is true. But you hear these stories about militarized police in Mexico, and that likely is true as well. But I guess in the coastal towns because it is such a huge, because they depend so very much on tourism, less so in the central towns, and like Mexico City less so there obviously, that I guess they just operate on a slightly different mentality perhaps. And so it's just, it's just really like you're going to any other town, and it's again, I can't recommend Ensenada enough. It was so nice.